And it's really not like only just the young people. I mean, it's so many of us, like we get into, especially in the outdoor industry, we get into this career because we're passionate about the outdoors, and we might not necessarily have that like travel experience or that understanding of what hospitality really like looks like. And I think being the chef, I'm in a unique position to be a fly on the wall, and especially being a contractor where I can observe these interactions between owner staff, between other staff members, and between staff and guests, between owner and guests. Like I can observe all these interactions, and I've seen what really is the difference between like clients walking away being like completely satisfied and enamored, and like them walking away feeling like there was something to be something left to be desired.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LeaderPass podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Minton, and today we have an extraordinary guest, Holly Hearn. Holly's the brilliant mind behind Game Girl Gourmet, a unique brand that blends her passion for wild game hunting and fishing and cuisine. It even has a connection to her background in industrial engineering. Holly's journey began during her senior year of engineering school when her culinary skills caught the attention of a popular cooking show. Though she didn't make the final cut, this experience inspired her to pursue her passion for cooking. She's now a sought-after private chef traveling to hunting lodges and fishing camps around the world, creating unforgettable dining experiences. Holly's expertise in wild game cuisine and her commitment to hospitality makes her an invaluable resource for anyone looking to elevate their culinary skills and hospitality practices. We're excited to cook up something fun with Holly's incredible story. I'm sorry I had to do it. Her tips on refining the guest experience and her unique approach to combining the outdoors with gourmet cooking. Welcome, Holly. Well, I'm excited that you're here in LeaderPass Studios, Holly, and I can't wait to talk about Game Girl Gourmet, which is the coolest brand. Love your logo. I want to talk about how you came up with that, but tell me kind of where this all started for you.
So this kind of started my senior year of engineering school. I had been approached by a very popular TV show and cooking show, and I had started posting photos on my Instagram of food that I was making just for fun on my personal Instagram, that I started to actually follow my competitive shooting journey. And yeah, they reached out, asked me to audition for the show, and I had honestly never even considered it. Food was always like something I was passionate about, but it was like a hobby. It was that thing that I did at the end of a really like long, hard day of like problem solving. Because when I was in school, I worked and I went to school and I managed student organizations, and I did all of the things that, they say you're supposed to do to have like the right job when you graduate. And so I went through that experience and was one of 60 people that were chosen to go to Los Angeles. And out of like 10,000 people that had auditioned.
Oh, wow.
And ended up not making the final cut of the show. And it was honestly such a great blessing. I got sent home, and then a few days later, they shut the airport down for COVID.
Oh, wow. So
But
it's right during the...
yeah, but I got to graduate on time from school. And it really kind of got me thinking. And, I graduated during COVID, during this time when we had no certainty about anything. We didn't know when markets would recover, when companies would be hiring again. Veteran engineers were being laid off. And, keep in mind, I had gone through my entire school career with the intent of that end goal of getting the job.
Oh, yeah. And you said industrial engineering?
Yeah,
Okay.
industrial engineering,
Yeah.
which ironically is the perfect undertone for being a chef. And that experience, I think, really subconsciously got me thinking that, wow, they recognized that I was talented enough to put on national TV. And maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
And I sat around with it for a few months, and like things just they weren't.
Still no jobs.
Yeah, still no jobs. Like people were still, like not leaving their house. And I just had this like aha moment, I suppose, when I went on an offshore fishing trip with a gentleman named Jack Beal, and I brought all the ingredients and I cooked on the boat, and we're like 100 miles offshore. And I'm like cooking up all these meals, and we get back to the dock, and he's like, "You should think about like doing this full time for like the boats and ranches
Like
and like,
destination going.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like see what happens." And I was just thinking, I was like, what do I even have to lose? I'm like, if this doesn't work out and I can get an engineering job, like, great. Like, I'll have this awesome side gig and it'll be just for fun.
Yeah.
Um, and then like I started my social media, and 9 days later I was booked for an entire hunting season.
Wow. And you've always, I mean, since you were very young, hunting, fishing,
Yeah.
outdoors. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Texas. So I grew up on the Gulf Coast. My dad, we actually lived on the lake when I was born, but my dad was into boats and hunting and outdoors. But thankfully my mom is a little bit more of a city girl. And so she was incredibly into travel. And so I had this like unique balance of feral child meets refined child,
Yeah.
because we spent a lot of time like going to history museums and traveling and eating food and like having these experiences that like really shaped me, in addition to growing up in the outdoors and having this extreme reverence for the animals that we were pursuing.
It's such a great combo. It's such a cool combo of like, game hunting
Mhm.
and doing the excursions and the kind of adventure almost trips. And you've been to 30 plus different countries. I think
Yes.
he's how many? Like 34
I
countries.
don't know, I've lost count. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's a blessing to get to go to travel again, especially having, lived through the, like, weird COVID era. But it's every country has really shaped me in a different way,
Okay.
and I have this, like, really extreme appreciation for cultures and the things that, like, truly connect us, and one of those things I feel like really connects us is food.
Hmm.
And there are few things that really like make you feel as connected to like yourself, nature, friends, family as sharing a meal,
Yeah.
but also having that connection with your food
Mm.
is pretty incredible.
Yeah. You talked about the respect of it and honoring that
Mhm.
experience as it pertains to what you're eating
Yeah.
and then also how you're preparing it and that overall sharing it with others, which brings that all together
Yeah.
with people. And is that comes from family side or is it a mixture of that and travel? I mean, because traveling obviously exposed you to different types of foods as well
Mhm.
in those cultures.
I think it's both. I have huge family on both my mom's and my dad's side, and all of our holidays were centered around meals.
Okay.
And like, there is not a single person in my family that can't cook. I mean, it's tough competition, let me tell you.
Seriously, you were prepared for that
Yeah, I was
cooking.
prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think it's a combination of both of those things. Cause like as I've gotten older, I've come to like really appreciate the food that like my family makes.
Yep.
I don't think when I first started my career and I was getting into it that I had as high of an appreciation for it as I do now.
Hmm.
Um, but it's one of those things that just shapes you.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're going to lodges, you're going to different kind of resort areas or hunting locations, fishing locations. Tell me about that. Is that
Yeah.
something you go and plant there? Because you've even done that in New Zealand, you were telling me yesterday.
Yeah, so I'm basically a private chef, private wild game chef. I specialize in wild game cuisine from all over the world, and I travel to various, private residences, hunting lodges, fishing camps. I've worked in tent camps on the Nushagak River, to very high-end lodges in the heart of the South Island in New Zealand, and like a ton of different places in Texas. Um, and that's kind of what it, like, is the basis of it, is the hunting and fishing for
Yeah.
me.
And what is I mean, give me a feel for what a day like that. I mean, I picture you just kind of slammed all day,
Yeah.
preparing and just rocking because you're going from one thing to the next. They go off hunting. Take me through a day of that, what that looks like.
So, regardless of whether you're, like, working at a hunting lodge or a fishing lodge, the things are kind of the same, unless I'm, like, in residence there, so I will, like, go and, like, stay for 6 weeks,
Okay.
3 months, something like that, usually in the summer because that's opposite our like our season here in the US. Um, but the average day, like I'll wake up at whatever time that is congruent with when breakfast needs to be served, and I'll start prepping that. And you know, the hunters will come back, or before the clients leave to go out in the morning, I'll have breakfast prepared for them. Um, and then there'll be a short break that's usually just cleaning and like preparing for lunch service. And then lunch service, if they're out fishing, it depends on if I'm working on a boat or I'm like sending people off to
Okay.
fish.
Yep.
Lunches will be made either the night before, or I'm preparing lunch on the boat. And when we're talking a boat, we're not talking like a small one. We're like talking about a sport
A
fishing
big boat.
yacht,
Okay. Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and then there'll be a little bit of time in the afternoon, and I'll usually start dinner prep and thinking about how that's going to work. Um, and planning my timelines, getting organized, all of those things to create a really special experience that's like very memorable in the outdoors. And one of the things that I really am passionate about doing is bringing as much of the wild game meat, whether that's fish or like fowl or whatever that is, whatever that looks like, bringing that into the meals for the clients to really connect them back to like what they're ultimately there for.
Yep, and you're really adding things to it that do really look more chef oriented. So you're not just a cook. You're
No,
not just cooking things. You're
no.
you're really kind of elevating the experience. And I know you look for those little things. I've got to believe that's because you've seen good, bad, the ugly
Yeah.
at every different type of facility, whether it's 3-star, 4-star. You were actually walking through the differences there. But do you just kind of fit in and you bring your skill set and your gift to that environment?
I
And
think so. There's things that I've like really learned over the last, however many years it's been since I've started, and that's like really to like try to understand the operation better. I think when I first started, I had this idea of how it like absolutely had to be for me, instead of trying to understand the operation better, um and flowing from that way. But I have seen, and that's I'm an industrial engineer. My natural inclination is to improve things,
programs, processes. Yeah, yeah,
programs,
yeah.
processes, procedures, standardization. That's my natural inclination. So when I come in and I see an operation that like they're just missing that thing, whether they're, like trying to be three, four, or five, they're just missing that small little thing
Mhm.
that like I've been so fortunate to have experienced over the course of like my travel and my hunting and fishing,
Yep.
and outdoor shenanigans.
No, you could spot it, in other words. And so you're
Yeah.
looking at when I think in terms of food, you've got one kind of category of how things are presented and what's missing there,
Yeah.
or you've got environment,
Yeah.
or you've got even one of the things that was kind of a pet peeve is like realizing that the young people coming in to this environment who are working at the lodge or working at these locations aren't necessarily taught the basics of
Yeah.
hospitality, which is partially what's driving you based on what you're saying, this like,
Yeah.
this hospitality moment that allows it all to come together.
Yeah, and it's really not like only just the young people. I mean, it's so many of us, like we get into, especially in the outdoor industry, we get into this career because we're passionate about the outdoors, and we might not necessarily have that like travel experience or that understanding of what hospitality really like looks like.
Mm.
And I think being the chef, I'm in a unique position to be a fly on the wall, and especially being a contractor where I can observe these interactions between owner staff, between other staff members, and between staff and guests, between owner and guests. Like I can observe all these interactions, and I've seen what really is the difference between like clients walking away being like completely satisfied and enamored, and like them walking away feeling like there was something to be does like something
Something's
left to
missing.
be
Yeah.
desired.
Yeah.
And I think what people also like sometimes fail to realize is that like hospitality is show business. Like it is.
Hmm.
Like you're creating this facade of everything is together, like even if it's falling apart, like you're
Still let
creating
the
this.
guests feel like this is that
Yeah.
magical moment.
And it was something that I like kind of have learned early in my career, that like I really set the tone for a lot of people's experience, and
You do as the chef, you mean, or
I
as
mean, I like every person that has contact with the front end,
yeah,
like, typically, most of the kitchens I've worked in are open concept. So, I've gotta think about the fact that, like, if I'm pissed off, if I'm not happy, if my like and granted, I don't mean I have, like, the worst cooking faces, like, let me tell you, I just look focused.
yeah,
Like,
you're intense with it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm intense. Um, but something I learned early on is that, like, I really and I did not do a good job of it when I first started.
hmm,
I really like, how I carry myself really matters.
wow,
I really
yeah,
set the tone.
mhm,
Like, I mean, if you're walking into a lodge and it's okay to be overwhelmed, right? It's okay for things to, like, not feel good, to, like, have a minute or, like, things the kitchen is a very like, stressful place,
yeah,
and, um, I learned that no matter how stressed out I am, like, people are still really excited to be there.
they're having fun.
They're
They're
having a
looking for yeah,
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 and how I speak to them, like, especially if I'm in the middle of, like, I'm swamped, I'm bogged down, I've, like, got 10 things to do to get things out on time, I find that it's almost better to be, like, a hair behind and give that guest the acknowledgement, the conversation, the time,
mm,
um, than to just be like, "I'm sorry, I can't talk to you right now, I'm so busy."
yeah, and I
You
don't see
know?
that, I don't know if it's since COVID or not, but service in general just does not feel like it's the same as what it was, whether it's
Yeah.
restaurants or maybe even your world. But that goes a long way. Like even
Yeah.
if you don't know the answer, if I come up to you as a guest and I'm like, "Where's this?" or "What do I do?" and you're in the middle of something, how would you approach it? I mean, what would be something you do?
I would
You know,
just say, especially if I didn't know the answer, I'd say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I don't actually know how to answer this, but let me send a text to whoever." Like, it takes 3 seconds to send a text. Like,
yeah,
you see
yeah,
these, like, memes or all this stuff on social media where it's like, if he's not texting you back or she's not texting you back, like, blah, 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 like, it takes 0 effort to send a text. They're right. It does take 0 effort to send a text message.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, granted, sometimes you have to stop your whole, like, mental process, but in that moment, it might be more beneficial to stop what you're doing to make sure this person feels heard, seen, and helped.
yeah. That was one of your tips. One of
Yeah.
your tips for sure. The other was simply looking people in the eye and smiling and greeting them a certain way.
Yeah.
I mean, this seems so remedial
So
and basic.
basic.
Yeah,
So basic. And I mean, again, like, really the most important thing that it all boils down to is, like, communication.
yeah,
Just communicating like, "Hey, I really cannot take the time to have this conversation right now, but if I can finish this task and give me 10 minutes, I'm so excited to hear about your day."
yep, yep.
Or, "I'm so excited to, like, chat more with you."
Yeah. What is one of your if you're talking to a, husband and wife that own a facility, or I guess any size facility, what's something that you see as a common, issue? What's something that you would say, "Oh my gosh, this is something that's just, a no-brainer, but people miss it?"
That's a really good question. I think it's just the little, like, details. I mean, let me start off with saying the most luxurious five-star experience I've ever had was at Cayenne Vista Ranch in La Meta, Texas. I took a long-range shooting course, and we ate dinner in their dining room.
Hmm,
Their accommodations were immaculate and spotless and beautiful, and I think really it is that personal interaction.
really? Okay.
Yeah, and I think that when you're stretched so thin, sometimes you don't always you're, like, more concerned with, like, getting the tasks done
Yep.
than, than how you're making people feel.
Yeah, that relational side.
Yeah, that relational side. Um, and I think there's also just, like, tactically speaking, there's small things. I mean, even at the most basic of, motels, like, most basic accommodations, they usually provide some kinda little shampoo or soap or something like that. I mean, there's just small things like that that, like, really make such a big
Yeah, because if you forget it, I guess you're out in the middle of nowhere
yeah.
sometimes. I mean, if you're, like, where you can't go get it, even first aid, little minimal things you were saying, ibuprofen.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems menial, but it's stuff that goes a long way
yeah.
to that experience.
And I think sometimes where I see lodge owners, operation managers, sometimes lack is they don't always hire accordingly.
Okay, what do you mean?
I think that they hire people that are like more into they're just like, I need a job, but they're not looking at like, I don't
The
know.
big picture.
Yeah, they're not looking at the big picture. Like, is this person actually like I mean, in an ideal situation, you would be able to hire people all the time that were incredibly passionate
Sure.
about the outdoors and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
excited to be a part of this because they're moving through their career or whatnot. And I think sometimes though it's just I think there's so many things going on that there's just some things that just like get slipped through.
Yeah. So if a ranch calls you in and or is going to learn from you, specifically plating, talk about that for a second. Like, what are some things that you can help them do, or that you would be helping them learn?
Uh I think more so than plating, we can talk about like culinary consulting.
Okay.
So that's definitely something I can help you with, especially as an industrial engineer. I'm very uniquely positioned to come in and train your current staff and create a program that you can pass on, should you, have a turnover or something like that, because that's really what's important, is ensuring that you can repeat these things. We can cover anything from like menu development, changing your plating, elevating your current food, which is something we touched on in the course. But if you have like specifics, you should definitely like reach out, give me a call, let's talk about it, and I'll help you out.
Mhm. One
Slip
of the
through the
things that I
cracks.
appreciated about and I want to talk about hospitality with Holly, which is your new
Yeah.
course that is actually built to cover these issues. But one of the things you talked about was, and I really like it, is helping whether they're passionate about the same things
Mhm.
as the guests, or even where they work. It's to feel like they're a part of the team. I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and it's really important to make people feel like they're a part of the team and to have like very transparent discussions with your staff so they feel like they're supported enough to be able to take care of people.
Yeah,
But also, like, we all have a rotten egg guest every now and they need to know that you're going to support them through that as well.
yeah.
Like there are some people that you just cannot make happy, and that happens. And your staff's feelings in those moments are of higher consideration than that particular guest.
You bet. You
You
bet. So
know,
that
your
shows you care
team.
about them. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're
your
your team.
team is everything.
Yep.
And then another thing is that I think that sometimes there's so many things to do, and a lot of lodges and like ranches, they start off where they're just like people are coming to hunt with them on the weekends for fun, right? And they never expected that they were going to have three, four, five, employees, and they don't actually know all the things to like delegate or what is something that is like needs to be repeated or like let's talk about cooking for a second. I mean, how I like we probably have very different cooking styles. I don't know if you cook, Jamie, but if you do, we
At times,
probably
I've
would
been known
have
to cook, but I will confirm we have different cooking styles.
for
There's a big
sure.
difference. Yeah.
But if you're running an operation and you have recipes that you make that are very special to you, um, and they're just kind of something that you feel, but they're not written down, how easy is it for you to repeat that?
Yeah. You can't unless you're the person doing it. You can't
Yeah.
teach it for sure. Yeah.
So having running these organizations, these operations more like a business and less like a fun weekend
Mm.
can really help keep the focus on the guest.
You said that exactly when you talked about how while they're at the hunt or while they're off doing what they're there to do, little things like empty cups, a little bit of trash here or there. People walk in with their boots and there's mud everywhere, dirt everywhere. And if you don't have that process you're talking about, if you don't have that listed out, the team can know, hey, your job is when they're gone, you clean up because
Yeah.
otherwise it just kind of you miss it. But that's a little thing that you said when they come back, they
Yeah.
may not go, oh, you picked up the cup,
Yeah.
as the guest, but they feel like something's different, something feels better.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we worded it like you don't always notice when it's happening, but you definitely notice it when
When
it's
it's not.
not happening.
That's right. That's right. So the hospitality idea, I liked your definition of it, by the way.
Mhm.
So tell me the definition of hospitality.
Hospitality is that home away from home feeling. It's making people feel welcome.
That experience, and I think this whole idea of filming. What drove you to do that? What made you say, you know what, I'm going to do this? And I guess you talk about the negatives you see and how there's small things that people can improve on, but what
Yeah.
what motivated you to do it?
Well, I mean, I have been so fortunate to work with some really incredible ranch owners and in on really incredible boats and in some very beautiful facilities. And like I said, it's just those really tiny things that make all the difference, and it just irks the shit out of me. Sorry, probably can't say that, but it just
You did?
like it irks me. Because they're so small.
Yeah.
It's such a
It's not hard to do.
minuscule it's not hard to do,
Yeah.
but I think that it's like, when you're thinking about so many things, especially as a small operation, it's like it falls down the list of priorities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, freeing up your mental and cognitive space to, by having these lists and things that allow your staff to, you don't have to take the time to explain to them every single time.
Yeah. It's
Like, there's
done for them.
the expectations already set.
Yep. So talk about a few things that are going to be covered in the new training program.
So some of the things that are going to be covered are making guests feel welcome, like preparing your lodge for the arrival of
Like for
clients,
your arrival.
or
Yeah.
yeah, preparing your lodge, your ranch, whatever it may is. You can even apply that to a boat. I mean, like I've not run into too many boats that have an issue staying clean, um, but we're talking about some plating things, culinary, like elevating your culinary experience. Like there are there are just some things that you can do that aren't even like renovating your whole place that can make somebody feel really special.
Yeah, because you're matching. I love how you did it. You're like, okay, if you're eating tacos, remember you were telling us this. If
Yeah.
you're eating tacos, a better plate for tacos was it the rectangle?
Yeah, like a
Little things
rectangular.
like that, and
Yeah.
that makes it feel like, oh wow, this is a more of a elevated culinary moment.
Yeah.
Even if we're eating tacos on a normal plate from Walmart or
Yeah.
whatever. So that plating idea, and you're using these skills. Even, and what was the other one about when to pour the sauce and how to pour it on the top or put it on the bottom?
Yeah.
Things that are very chef oriented. But if somebody who's kind of just a normal person that does that, it will create that
Yeah,
ambiance.
that little bit of extra, that thing that makes it feel more personalized, more special, more custom, and just really overall impact the end experience for your guest.
And right now, what you're doing, and you just came straight from one, is you will go paint one more time the picture. In fact, this one, let's talk about women in hunting and women in this
Yeah.
experience, because I really love that. I dig the pink, and I like your approach. And we talked about chivalry. Tell me about your idea of equipping and being able to be knowledgeable as a woman.
Well, I have worked with some really incredible ladies, and like fortunately, right now there's amazing like camps for women. Like She Hunts is one I love working with, and like they have this concept there that women are oftentimes hindered by chivalry in the field, and so this is like a crash course in everything you would need to know as a hunter. And I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, I grew up with a dad who insisted that I do everything myself, and I'm so grateful that I grew up in that kind of like that learning environment where it
Yeah.
was, very safe for me to ask questions, safe for me to figure things out. But as an adult, sometimes it can be kind of intimidating, like to ask these questions, to be in a space where, you don't even actually know what questions you have.
Yeah.
But I'm very passionate about involving women in the outdoors and being a part you know, of getting more women involved in the outdoor industry.
Yeah, and it's the guy. It's not that the guys have any. You were describing this. It's not like that's a bad thing. You love to have,
Oh, no.
have be taken care of in those moments at times. But this specifically
Mhm.
is a limitation.
Yeah,
And
and it can be to doing things on your own.
yeah,
Like having that base level of knowledge um, on any skill is, very important when it comes to spending time in the outdoors, doing anything.
yeah. Outside of the chef
Mhm.
service that you do, what are some of the other things that you love to do and that you find yourself doing with this type of an audience?
Well, I love providing educational experiences. So that's probably one of my most favorite things that I get to do is doing live cooking demonstrations,
Oh, cool.
coming to ranches, seminars, she hunts, as we kind of talked about, and teaching women how to make these, or anybody, teaching how to make recipes or like showcasing um, wild game in a way that they might not necessarily thought about how to use.
Yeah, and if you've got brand new people, I mean, do you really have newbies that come to these that have like, "Hey, how do I load the gun?" I mean, is it all the way
That's not really where my area of expertise is, but there are incredible adult learn to hunt programs now, and that's kind of like one of the things I love about She Hunts is we have girls that attend that camp who have never been hunting before,
wow,
and that are interested in hunting. And then we have women that attend that camp who have been to Africa 10 times. I mean,
it's a good variety.
it's a
Yeah.
great variety. And then I have done conferences like Wildlife Association conferences, and just done a cooking class as part of their educational like outreach.
Yeah.
I have done farmers markets, just teaching people about connecting deeper, through wild game, wild caught fish, whatever that may be, where they can find that stuff.
That's awesome. You're also an avid reader. We were
I
talking about reading.
I love to
Give me
read.
like either a leadership book or a book that you really feel like helped you in your career or in your business.
One of my favorite books that I've read recently was The Art of Impossible.
Okay.
So, that's the neuroscience behind high performance. I love that book.
Nice.
I think that that is one of the that book has helped me sustain like creativity and like work more so than anything else. But I mean, I'm a Jim Collins fan. I love podcasts. I do a lot of reading. Right now, I'm actually going through Fish Butchery by Josh Nyland.
Okay.
So, and that's such a unique way to look at fish. There's a lot of waste within the seafood industry, and so that book really addresses that. And yeah, I'm an avid reader and a nerd, if you will.
Yes. You had some nerdy phrases that we talked about
Yeah, I
earlier,
sure
which is
did.
really good. Best place you've been in that experience? What comes to mind? The first thing that comes to mind as far as your own.
For hunting,
Yeah.
or
For that hunting experience that we were talking about with connection and in that moment, what comes to mind?
oh man, it's not necessarily a place of, like that's. I just think about being with my grandpa. Like, I think about hunting with my grandpa. I'm still to this day, I hunt with him every year. He's 90 and I take him hunting
Nice.
every year, and I feel like to me that's the most like luxury experience, and that's what we're all looking for in our outdoor pursuits is we're looking for that connection.
That's right. That's right. That's great. People, if they want to find you, talk about your website, your Instagram, where would they learn more about you?
You can definitely learn more about me on through my website, gamegirlgourmet.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. So you
People
can,
can bring you to their location if they want
yeah,
to,
absolutely. So that's kind of what I do. I come with all the ingredients and we make it happen. So
I love it. And you're a whole lot of fun too to be around. We've had you for a couple days here
thanks.
filming your course at LeaderPass, and it's been a joy getting to know you
Thank you.
and hearing about your background and things to come. And super excited to be able to showcase this for you very, very soon. I think people are going to love it
Thank
with
you.
Game Girl Gourmet. All right, up high.